And welcome to this morning's top story. If you recall last week, we got a lot of reaction on social media with regards to Constable Sonny Spina from the city police when he came by and talked to us about the Canada revenue scam. Do you remember that? We talked about how he got a call and recorded the call, and we played some of the conversation, and he did an absolutely phenomenal job being scared and nervous and not knowing where the papers were and dealing with the language barrier. We had so many good questions about that. We thought we'd bring him back and talk about scam again. He's going to be Scam, Sonny Scam.
That's not quite the title.
No.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
That, I have to say, that was absolutely phenomenal. I can't believe how fast you are on your feet to have recorded that conversation.
Yeah, you know what? I was waiting for that call for a long time,
right.
And it finally came through, and I really quickly was able to grab it. So I was lucky to get that to help educate some of our folks here in town.
Now, tell us about some of the other scams. We're going to talk about the tapping, and we're going to talk about elder abuse scams. So let's talk about tapping, because that's when, like with a credit card, you just tap the machine, right?
Yeah. So a lot of people have this feature on their bank cards or on their credit cards, and typically speaking, those are very safe features. Those are relatively safe features for you to use. The problem is when your cards are no longer in your possession. So the biggest thing that we can do to help avoid this is to make sure you don't leave your car or your wallet in your car. Make sure you don't leave your wallet unattended and that it's all secure.
And girls, don't leave your purse in the car because it's got too much junk in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
I do that.
So the biggest way to save yourself from being a victim with regards to tap fraud is to basically keep your cards in your possession.
Is there something with those special cases that they give you sometimes for cards that you use, and they protect you? Apparently they screen the card somehow?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people have this fear that if their wallet comes in close proximity to one of these detectors, that it's going to inadvertently charge their card and they'll find out later on about it. We don't really see a lot of that. We don't see that happening. These readers are pretty specific, so we don't see a lot of that happening.
So when we talk about tapping, or even just, going to a store, in the States, you're traveling, you're on a little bit of a holiday, and you're thinking, I'll use my credit card for the whole thing. And then you get home and there's like an $800 charge on your card that you don't know anything about. How do they do that?
Yeah, how do criminals do that? It's sometimes it appears really, really complicated and complex to us, but oftentimes it's not. Sometimes criminals can install readers on systems that will just read the cards as they're scanned through, and oftentimes the employees don't even know that, right?
Wow.
So it's important for us to be able to check machines. If you're using a bank machine, if you're using some type of a machine, if something doesn't seem right about the machine, notify somebody. Don't use it, and notify someone. The machine should be almost flawless while you're using it. You shouldn't really see anything happening. You shouldn't see anything loose or anything that's recording the pin pad area. If you do see these things, you need to notify somebody right away.
And I bet they do it because people are in a hurry, right? You're on holidays, or you're running to work in between. And
yeah, absolutely. And not everywhere requires chip and pin. For credit cards, right? And I can tell you, I was on vacation in Mexico one time, and I was pleasantly surprised that when I went to purchase something, I had to use my chip and pin on my credit card, and I was really surprised, but I was really pleasantly surprised for that they were using it even down there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually, in a good way, my card was declined one time when I was working in Jamaica, and didn't understand how come. But I'm very diligent with my payments and stuff, and they saw this kind of weird change in my history and just shut it down.
Yeah, and that's a great thing for people to know, that when you are traveling, you can call and notify your credit card company that you're going to be somewhere, so that they know where you are and they know that the purchases will be legitimate. And actually, I had the same thing happen. I tried to purchase something in Grand Rapids, and when I called them, they said, we didn't know you were in Grand Rapids.
Right.
And that's great. They're looking out for your safety as well.
It's annoying a little bit at the time, but then when you stop and think about it, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, is there anything else we can do at a bank machine, or even, at a Canadian Tire store? We're at the grocery store, and there's points cards, and so you got your card out, and now cards are flying, and you know what I mean? So
yeah, it does get confusing.
what should we do to take better care sure of ourselves?
Well, first of all, we always advocate for people to never share your PIN numbers with anyone. I know it's easy sometimes. I know it's convenient to just give your card to someone and give them a PIN number, but that's so easily spread. It's it just one thing leads to another. Never share your PIN numbers with anyone, and don't keep them written down places in your wallet or things like that. Try and make it numbers or a combination that is not easily guessed. Sometimes sometimes people tend to use the same numbers or the same passwords. Don't do that. Try and find a way to cycle them through and change different passwords on a regular basis so that people can't get access to those things. If you do find that you've lost a card or you think you've misplaced a card, contact your bank, contact your credit card companies immediately. They'll stop everything on that card. They'll send you a new one. It's actually a relatively fast and seamless process. If you even think your card has been compromised, call them. They'll look into it immediately.
Now, you mentioned the attachment that fraudsters put on these machines that read the cards. How can they do that without being noticed?
Sometimes these devices are as small as a USB. Sometimes they're even smaller, these little skimming devices that get put into the card slot on a banking machine, right? And it just kind of gets into the card slot. You put your card in, it reads the information on your card. So the one thing it's not reading is your PIN number. So they oftentimes have a separate mechanism to see that PIN pad, to see where you're typing things in on that PIN pad. So what I always do, whenever I use a bank machine, I always check it first, put my card in, then I put my wallet over top of my hand on the PIN pad, and that way it covers the entirety of the PIN pad. No one can see anything. And by
so
feel,
they can't even see your
pattern.
They
can't see the pad at all. And then by feel, I enter my PIN number on the card, so that even if there was a device that was trying to read the number, they can't. So just use something even as simple as your hand over top of the PIN pad, and you'll be able to avoid people seeing that number.
That's an awesome tip. I'm going to try doing that. Now, tell us about people who rip off seniors. It's so heartbreaking and so dishonest and ugly. And how do they go about doing that? Because they cheat them out of their money.
Yeah, and this is a very unfortunate crime. This is something that's you're right. It's horrible and it's very difficult for us to see at times. Now, when we talk about frauds that happen against seniors, there's a lot of different things. Anything from that Canada Revenue Agency scam all the way through to frauds involving power of attorney. So the Canada Revenue Agency type scam, that's pretty easy to see. Most of us can see that. Now, unfortunately, elderly people sometimes do fall victim to that scam, so it's important for us to educate them. But when we get into things like power of attorney, when someone has a power of attorney that is in place for them to take over the finances for someone, what's really important for us to know is that if you have a power of attorney, it's your responsibility to use that money for the sole purpose of helping that individual paying their bills and their daily expenses and their living expenses. You can't even take $1.75 to buy yourself a cup of coffee. That isn't money for you to use. You don't just have control over their money for your own purposes. You have control over their money because they've been deemed unfit, and it's for you to pay to take care of them with their money. Now, we've seen a bit of a rise in that type of crime that's happened in our area, and I think that's partly attributed to the fact that people are getting really good at noticing that. People are getting really good at noticing and contacting us early. The earlier we get contacted, the better. Now, the best way you can safeguard against that type of crime is to have a minimum of 2 people that are a power of attorney. Anytime there's 2 people, one person can see things maybe that the other isn't, and it keeps people a little more honest when they know that there's a second set of eyes.
You know what, that was going to be my question, because lots of times the elder person is incapacitated, has dementia or Alzheimer's, and doesn't know or care enough to watch their bank statements anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't think about it. Plus, it's my son or it's my grandson, they'd never rip me off. So there's all that too.
Yeah, and unfortunately sometimes that happens. Now, one of the good things is there's also the public guardian and trustees. If there is absolutely no one available, if we just can't find anyone that can take over this person's finances, they'll do that. And they're an impartial employee who will take over that and handle the day-to-day finances for this person. So there is a fail-safe there if there's no one else, but the best case scenario is, that some of these family members step up together and take care of this person.
That's such a good idea, because then everybody keeps everybody else honest.
Absolutely, and you know what, I mean, you think back on your life and you think how much your parents and your relatives have given you over your life, and really it's nothing to step up and take care of them and make them a little bit comfortable, when they're towards the end of theirs.
And to make them feel reassured that they're not going to be ripped off or taken advantage of.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
There's a reason they picked them.
You're
Right?
absolutely right. It's a position of immense trust, and and even myself, if I was in that position, I would want a second set
Right.
of eyes there anyway, just in case I make an error. I mean, we're all human.
Yeah, sure.
We're all human. We make errors sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And something as simple as maybe a new roof needs to be put on, and you're about to spend $8,000 for a new roof, but somebody else sees it and says, no, you know what, we can get it for $4,000. Okay,
Right,
well,
right.
those are important things, because when we look at seniors, we know that they're mostly on a fixed income, and we know that every dollar really counts for them, and we have to make sure that we do that responsibly.
That's such a great idea. Such a good hint. Thank you so much for stopping by
Anytime.
again.
Absolutely, anytime. I enjoy coming, so anytime we have a chance to help folks and educate the public, we're here.
Thank you very much. Sonny
Thanks.
Spina with the City Police. We'll be back with more Top Story coming up right after this break.